good call into this huge field of Lugia, but Jon definitely having some respect for it within his deck list. So it's really interesting to see how this is going to fare. It could be a really good matchup.
Yeah, Jon is definitely excited about this one, as the matchup can be a problem typically, unless you, of course, can use some of those pivot slots, and sure enough he is. We see the Regigigas is going to be featured here, along with multiple paths to the peak to shut down that incredible ability on the Duraludon VMAX. So very excited to see what these two players can find for us here. Who's going to end up with potentially 3 match points and get themselves one step closer to the top 8.
I love to seeing that Regigigas, considering they were talking about all the decks and the techs that they might have, and seeing every Lugia being able to play something a little different is interesting. Another card that may or may not be included in this Lugia is the Dunsparce, and unfortunately the start on Jon's end.
Yeah, maybe not the ideal starter there, but yeah, we heard the guys talking about that and said Christian's the only Regigigas player. Not true. Jon's definitely representing.
To start things off, over on Grant's end, 2 Arceus making their way onto the field, and now Ultra Balling away Pokegear, and I believe Raihan start looking through that deck, see what's prize, and start eyeing up that Duraludon.
Yeah, this is a little bit of a scary start here for Grant. Of course, going first is phenomenal, but we mentioned this many times in casts before in years past when the Arceus deck is playing. The scariest part of the opener is, do you have an energy to start things off? You'd love to have that so that you can attack and get energies accelerated with your Arceus VStar, but if you just have to do it with the Arceus V, it's of course going to set you back a turn as far as prize cards go.
Yeah, being able to get that basic energy, no matter whether it's the Arceus V or the V-Star, at least you'll get that energy acceleration, but not being able to deal that damage with just a regular V is definitely a little unfortunate.
We're seeing Grant, of course, taking some time here. The rest of the hands, I think we saw the boss's orders, but the main card there is that Arceus V-Star, and that's why you see the Arceus V on the bench as well. Could evolve that one and then have the opportunity to just find that double turbo next turn.
Well, as unfortunate as the Dunsparce start is, being able to start with this quick ball and get rid of an Archeops, definitely nice over on Jon's end. Opportunity to grab a Lugia and get one of those birds into the discard pile.
It's where you want to keep those, and of course, when you're looking through the deck here, very important to understand where your tech cards are for the matchup. 2 Path and that Regigigas are going to be very crucial to eye up, and also you want to make sure that you have a lot of powerful energies. Maybe there's going to be an opportunity for a big Lugia V-Star to attack into that Duraludon if the path is there.
Especially, too, that's your window when the path is out to be taking those out. So you want to make sure you take advantage of it while you can.
Yeah, it feels counterintuitive, of course, to be playing path to the peak in a deck like this, but you really just need that one big turn to make the use of your Lugia V-Star's ability. Use that summoning star, get those Archeops into play, and from there on out, you're pretty content trying to lock out your opponent's abilities instead.
Just going through, double check with the counts, make sure you're all set. The last thing you want to do is be relying on that one card to realize you never had it the entire time, but it'll be that Lugia V making its way out into the hand, presumably on the table. But first, Evolution Incense, great way to be grabbing another Archeops.
Yeah, we saw also the Aurora energy is in hand too, so if there isn't even another way to get that Pokemon into the discard pile, you could at least discard there with the Aurora, and we haven't even seen a supporter for the turn yet, so even though Dunsparce is the representative, this hand is gas.
Yeah, as long as you can get your Lugias out, get those birds in the discard pile, you're generally having a pretty good time as a Lugia player. We've seen before just how struggling it can be to get those birds in the discard. All of a sudden, you're stuck with those hard moments. So a hand like this, it's nice to see. A good way to start things out.
Yeah, we were watching as Jon was playing against Connor Fenton just last round, and he maybe played 4 turns of Pokemon as he just couldn't get any of the birds down. He couldn't even find his Lugia in the first game, but this is going much better.
And that Aurora energy, looking at attaching it on to that Dunsparce, but baiting, of course, the Aurora energy. Good focus is just going to be getting rid of the Archeops, but with that Professor's Research in hand, that is also going to work.
Yep, down double Aurora energy. It's something that's a little odd for when you're playing with all of these different tech cards, but thankfully with the Regigigas, you're just looking for those colorless energies. It does mean that maybe some reach with the Evital, the Amazing Rare Evital later on could be difficult. There is the heat fire energy, so there is that potential reach, but of course Grant is playing the Parasol, so we have to watch out for that too.
And with the pass on over to Grant, it's going to be double evolution as Arceus VStar and the Duraludon VMAX coming out to play.
Yeah, this is a pretty solid turn here. May not even have to use Starbirth. Can hold on to that for a turn, and we're going to see the energies accelerated onto that Duraludon VMAX, and at least can start threatening with that Pokemon on turn 3.
Double turbo energy on to the active Arceus V. It is just going to be good to get those energies into play and accelerate onto the bench. No damage, but the Trinity Charge. At least you can start powering up that Duraludon.
Yeah, this is very strong. If he didn't find that double turbo, of course, then you would have had to use the Starbirth ability, and that really just sets you back. If you're not using that on a turn where you're also taking a knockout, it doesn't feel nearly as strong. So now there's a combination where maybe you also search out a card like a Serena or a Boss's Orders, and you're starting to attack into a Pokemon that's a little more relevant than a Dunsparce.
Yeah, the Dunsparce is cute and really nice on a lot of matchups, but unfortunately, all it's doing in this one is just the looking cute. Lugia V-Star, that evolution, and this is where we're going to be seeing that summoning star, the 2 Archeops in the discard pile going straight onto the bench.
Yep, very strong here to see those Pokemon early on, and of course Lumineon will be featured very soon here. No supporter in hand just yet, but Jon's going to be changing that, and a really strong bench so far. Hasn't had to show off too much just yet, and there will definitely be an opportunity later on to feature one of those Pokemon like that Regigigas to potentially take a big knockout sometime.
See the Lumineon come to the front as well. A Professor's Research eyed up right there and ready to be able to go and grab a supporter. Good chance to get a couple more cards in deck.
Yep, and Jon is going through the deck pretty quickly at this point, and we've seen a Research last turn, Research this turn, and when you start to get these energies accelerated by way of the Primal Turbo, it means that you have a pretty good opportunity to draw into those important cards in the matchup, finding that Regigigas, those paths to the peaks, and also worth noting is you also are going to have to find the choice belts to go along with the Regigigas if you're looking to take a big knockout on the Duraludon.
Yeah, the Duraludon, that is a junky boy with 330 HP. That's definitely a stretch, but having the means to take that KO definitely shows just how Jon really wanted to be coming prepared into this tournament to make sure this wasn't a matchup he had to worry about just as much as his Lugia counterparts.
Yeah, and I like seeing just the 2 powerful right now. If we see the 3rd, it means that you're going to have the choice belt for the Regigigas. You can't use 2 powerful energies on that Pokemon to avoid this. And you can see the debate right now for Jon. He's thinking about that, and it's probably just worth it at this point. You do play so many of those choice belts, and eventually you will find that card at the right time, just given the way that you've been drawing.
Yeah, when you've already gone through, well, you have the chance to go through 2 Research, being able to just go through the card draw, you'll end up in the position where you're just going to have the good things left in your deck. Eyeing up now, there's the V-Guard energy in hand, and that's looking and debating on the attach to the Lumineon.
Just going to throw down that energy. Might as well make use of all these, and you know that you'll be able to find that later on. If you do use the Lumineon, you can just shuffle those energies back into play and then have those for a later turn.
Actually, now that Aurora energy coming off the Dunsparce to bring this Lugia V-Star into the active slot with just the Arceus V on the other end. I mean, all those power energies stacked. This will be good.
Yeah, the powerfuls are going to be fantastic. Not for this turn, but for next turn, as Jon is showing the prize map right now. It wants to take this knockout, get 2 prize cards on the Arceus V, then have a Serena or a Boss for that Arceus V-Star on the bench, ignore the Duraludon, and then have that closeout knockout with a Regigigas.
Choice belt. Furthermore, just getting prepped for upcoming terms as the Tempest dive coming out to take the first 2 prizes of the match.
Yeah, a little bit of a hedge here too, just going to play down the choice belt. Now this means that if Jon is Marnied on this next turn, could just search out that last powerful energy with a Primal Turbo, and then if he draws into one of those paths, he could knock out the Duraludon with this Lugia.
Though it's going to be the Arceus V-Star on Grant's end, making its way into the active and starting to turn out with a poke gear. Thinking about it. Said Evolution Incense, get something else out of the deck, a little bit more likely to hit that poke gear and get a supporter.
And this is where Grant's deck starts to look a little slow. It's not going to be taking the knockouts that we're used to seeing. If this Pokemon also uses a double turbo, then it's not going to be a boss's orders knockout on that Lumineon now because of the V-Guard energy. The math just doesn't work out anymore, and you are going to have to soften up this Lugia at some point. So sure, you can go ahead and get the damage down and start to work with that one final Duraludon VMAX, but you'd like to see some hand disruption or something from this turn to at least do a little more.
Yeah, especially with just how fast Lugia can be of a deck. You need any opportunity, any chance, start slowing that down. It'll be the boss's orders off of the Pokegear, though.
Yeah, maybe not the best card right now, but at least it's something, and it might line up for some good attacks in the future. You can get the chip damage on the Lugia, and if it doesn't stick around, then maybe you can target that back up later on. But I think we're going to see another Pokegear, and just that boss will be a thin.
Another chance, other opportunity. Colress's experiment instead off of this one. And you get to see a lot of cards, but that's not going to be hand disruption on the other end. So instead, the boss's orders bring up this active Archeops. That's definitely something that would go down a way of the Trinity Nova.
This is a strategy that you can employ. You can go after the energy engine here and put Jon on a clock. And now Jon has to consider which of these Pokemon I want to try to knock out next turn, along with can I get some energies accelerated onto a Regigigas and have multiple threats set up at the same time, because you're not going to be able to get 5 energies in one turn anymore. There's also the big Parasol too, which could be impactful for at least setting up the Evital. It's going to have to be the Regigigas now.
Yeah, and that's one of the things with this deck. I mean, playing with one Archeops is definitely doable. You're still getting a decent amount of acceleration within a turn, but you can't do the things that you would necessarily like to when Pokemon are sitting down staring and needing 5 energy on, and that can definitely be a little bit of a tough spot to play from.
Well, it's just the single prize there, which is not exactly what Grant's looking for, but this is a long game that Grant is going to have to play, trying to get some sort of, oh wow, this is incredible. The powerful energy, the path to the peak, and he's holding the Serena.
Could not ask for better. Sure, the Archeops is lost, but I am about to gain so much more at this point. The round 1 victory there as Grant scoops it up and sends it into game 2.
That is exactly what you do with this deck. That lined up perfectly there. Had all of the cards and said, you had Starbirth, you didn't find Marnie? Thank you.
Pokemon will be found on Jon's end. Choice Belt.
Yeah, one of those powerful energies as well, and the Twin, which could help out with the Regigigas, who is gonna start the game for us here. Okay.
Yeah, definitely one that we maybe wanted to see a little later on, especially the amount of damage that it can be having in this matchup is so great. We've seen it in the Regigigas deck, of course, but the Gigaton break going up against a VMAX does 150 more damage, 300 total. It looks really nice.
Well, Jon is on a clock now. I would have rather started Lumineon or anything at that point.
Anything else.
You know that Pokemon could be targeted very early. You see your opponent discarding an energy, so certainly Grant is going to have a potential turn 2 attack lined up with an Arceus VStar, and that Pokemon searches out 2 of any card. That could be a knockout on a Regigigas pretty early.
Yeah, and with that quick ball getting rid of it, being able to an Arceus V down on the bench, sure, 2 things are prized, but the list does play 4. There's still the chance.
We'll see what else Grant gets going here, as it does have extra cards to start the game off, 2 additionals off that mulligan and drawing for the turn, so plenty of cards still in the hand.
Yep, and a good chance to take a look over, see exactly what is gone and what you need going on forward. Ultra Ball, lay that down. We'll be able to search out one of those Duraludons.
Yeah, and this is nice to have the Duraludon V. The hand looks like it could be played all the way down for a single strike Mustard on the next turn, but if the Regigigas finds its way onto the bench, or if there's a single Lugia that you could target at some point, then maybe you want to have a different supporter available next turn. But so this just leaves your options open.
And that'll be the energy attach onto the Arceus V before sending things on over, starting off at least. And Yeah, the Regigiga sucks, but having the bird, having the quick ball, and can go ahead and grab a Lugia.
Yep, looking through the list, I don't see any way that Jon actually switches Pokemon in this spot, so
Oh.
Regigigas is going to remain active, which just means that it's probably going to be knocked out, and Jon now needs to desperately pay attention to the rest of his damage amplifiers, and he's going to get the bad news that a powerful and a choice belt are in the prize cards, and that can make it tough if you're trying to knock out Duraludon. You need to use all 4 powerfuls on a Lugia.
Yeah, at least there's a couple of different answers in this list. So when a couple of them are going wrong, there's still other options available. But having 2 to 3 of them taken away is definitely a tough blow.
Yeah, this means that now the path is going to be so crucial in the mid stage of the game. So seeing a Pokemon that just continues to get you set up here, like that Lumineon, feels nice. You're gonna at least get a decent setup here, but this is not ideal for sure.
No, Lumineon, of course, being able to go and grab a supporter out. Sure, you can see a couple of more cards here and eyeing up through yet again. Looking and eyeing up that Marnie. I mean, definitely a couple cards in hand that doesn't really look like Jon wants to get rid of.
Well, if my hand is bad and your hand looks pretty good with you playing Ultra Balls and Quick Balls, you probably have the Arceus VStar. So let's go ahead and put ourselves on a level playing field. See if we can get something going next turn.
Of course, being able to at least E5 and not get rid of what you're sitting on is going to be nice. And if you can just make sure that the Marnie sticks over on your opponent's end and that Arceus V-Star can't make an appearance, it's going to be really good because that could be a definitely good way to slow things down. Looking at putting down the Veltal on a bench, another thing that can be dealing with Duraludon on Grant's end.
Yep, if you can catch your opponent before they find that Parasol, or maybe they have to use all of the cards from Starbirth to get a decent attack going, then maybe you have an opportunity where you can sneak this Pokemon in and take those prize cards, which you know are going to be impactful for Lugia to take knockouts later on the higher hit point Pokemon.
Lugia off of the Marnie there. Well, Ultra Ball in and a little bit of energy. Of course, just getting that Lugia down, then you have the chance to evolving it next turn to go for your summoning star and that typical setup. It doesn't look like too much left can be done this time around. 1 bird in the discard, a Lugia on the bench. Definitely could be worse.
Jon is about an Archeops away from having a pretty solid hand. He's got the Ultra Ball next turn. He's also got the Path to the Peak, but not much else going on. So looking for a little more off the top here. And Grant is going to go find the final Arceus that he has, as 2 are still prized.
Half of the Arceus that he runs, but the only 2 that he's going to have access to this time around. Getting rid of a Hyper Potion with that Quick Ball, being able to bring that out. There's a way in hand to get an Arceus V-Star this turn. It'd be really nice.
Well, it looks like Grant's probably going to have to find his one of Switch with his Starbirth ability, if he is even able to get there. And yeah, it's Marnie time. Going to have to find a little help here off the top of the deck. 5 cards now to get closer to that Arceus. I think we do see the Evolution Incense, so that's going to be fantastic here.
Yep. Throwing the big Parasol down onto that Duraludon before that Marnie, so that'll be so nice going up against the Veltal on Jon's end, and the Evolution Incense making its way out. We'll see that Arceus V-Star be so powerful, of course. That Starbirth ability, I mean, what more can you ask for?
Well, if you're playing along at home, I think you know what 2 cards we're grabbing here. The Double Turbo and the Switch are so helpful here. There is an escape rope in the deck where if a Pokemon that was less impactful than this Regigigas was in the active spot, you can move that around. But no, we want to knock out this Regigigas as soon as possible. Complete shift in the tides here as Grant is going to go up 1 prize card and take out a huge threat in that Regigigas on turn 2.
Yeah, if you can just slowly get those threats eliminated, that's going to be so nice for you. Because we got to see in the first game just how those answers can be going up against Grant. And of course, Grant doesn't know that the powerful energy and the choice belts are in the prizes. We do. So that's a huge advantage, being able to get rid of that Regigigas.
Yeah, the one issue that I see here is that Duraludon V did not evolve. And the fact that Grant was not able to find the switch or the double turbo, meant that the Starbirth had to find both of those cards, and that means that Duraludon could potentially be knocked out. It's not that hard to reach for the KO here. Of course, that Pokemon does have a hard coat ability, but dealing 250 isn't too difficult.
It's definitely an easier number to be hitting than the 330 once it evolves, so definitely out in that sort of way. Has to be a little bit of debating Jon's end. It'll be the Stoutland as well as the Serena that's pitched with that Ultra Ball to grab one other of the Archeops from the deck. If you can just get rid of it and get access to a Lugia VStar, they can start going for that Summoning Star and get his own setup underway.
Yeah, seeing the Serena pitched means that probably another way to get that Archeops into the discard pile, as that would have just been a great way to get that that Pokemon there. And instead now the Evital in the active spot means that we're probably going to see this Pokemon go for the knockout here. Gonna need to find the Lugia V-Star, and this would be a great way to use these colored energies for a knockout to maybe draw the prize cards that get you closer to the powerfuls.
And managing to pull that Lugia V-Star off of the Marnie and the other Archeops in the discard with thanks to that Aurora energy being attached can go ahead and go for that Summoning Star and start getting this Yveltal loaded up. An amazing destruction attack, so strong. Your opponent's active, it's knocked out, it's gone.
Yeah, I didn't think I'd ever see a card that read like this when I started playing 20 years ago, and sure enough, this is this is quite a knockout. Not going to have to worry about that on the backhand, as we see the big parasol there for the Duraludon V, which should be able to take a knockout here, but definitely a strong return knockout here for Jon.
Yeah, make sure that you can try and get those prizes where you can get them. And of course, as you mentioned, any chance to go within your own prizes and get a couple of those pieces that are going to help on later down the line.
I mean, the colored energies are basically useless for the majority of the game, just given the matchup. Big Parasol lines up really strongly against the Evital, so to be able to use these to take some prize cards and get yourself one step closer to using Lugia to its full potential is exactly what you want to be doing in this matchup.
Pokegear to start things out for Grant. Look at the top 7, grab a supporter out, be able to go from there. Able to quite see to grab. Just looking at
yeah, looks
Raihan.
Like Raihan is a pretty cool one, and that'll be added into the hand here. Oh, looks like he threw it into the discard pile. Hopefully we figure that out, but he's going to go ahead and use it.
Okay, yeah, we're going to right away, as soon, Raihan, you can play it only if a Pokemon was AO'd, but you can attach a basic energy from your discard, and then go search out a card. That's pretty nice in this type of situation.
Yeah, good card. It's a mini Starbirth, so now is used 1.5 Starbirth this game, and
Starbirth light.
Hopefully it gets to a Duraludon VMAX, and that is not so light.
Yeah, as soon as you can get that Duraludon VMAX into the active slot, you're looking pretty nice, minus a couple of things like that Escape Path. Since you have the big Parasol, this Yveltal in the active slot, it's not able to quite do anything to you. And sure enough, there it is, the big refrigerator making an appearance.
Well, it's going to be able to take a knockout here, but the rest of this hand is pretty awful. There's not much going on other than a boss's orders, and I'm trying to see is there another way that Grant can get a Pokemon to help out here. You don't really want to bench anything else because your opponent can just start to target these down. And yeah, I do like seeing the double turbo on the Eldegoss. Maybe you can find a turn to float up and avoid giving those prize cards away.
Nice little KO on the Yveltal. And now Jon eyeing up the Lugia V-Star to bring that into the active. Of course, still has the full engine with the Yveltal going down instead of the Archeops. Can energy accelerate, but the powerful energy is still in the prizes.
Yeah, and there's one in hand too, so even if he drew it, he wouldn't be able to get all 4 of them down at the same time. We don't see the Oranguru in this list, so it would have to be a Marnie shuffling them back in and then finding them, so not going to be happening this time around. Could go for the chip damage, of course, with the path, but it clearly isn't ideal.
Yeah, it up for a second, but instead be the two capture energies making their way onto the Lugia. I mean, the powerful energies, you want to be getting that one-hit KO once those are making those appearance, so might have to go other routes with just, if you're going for chip damage, use an energy that's not going to be quite as important maybe later down the line.
Yeah, I think as long as you're dealing enough damage to where a Pokemon like Lumineon could take the knockout here, then you'll feel safe. It looks like Jon is going to be able to deal just that base 220, and will have enough to follow up with the Lumineon. So this seems fine. It's going to be the defense version of a Lugia, as you just go for the V-Guard, but get enough damage down to at least do something.
Yeah, then be putting Grant in a situation where, okay, path is out, I'm taking some damage, sure, I have a lot of hit points, but you have to then find an answer to not be getting KO'd next time around. Choice Belt, Restaurant Prizes, making its way onto the Lugia as well.
The one big issue is we don't see a path yet, and the hand isn't very good for Jon either. We do see Lumineon, so maybe that could search out a different supporter, because Serena throwing away a lot of cards doesn't feel great either.
Double turbo onto the Lumineon. Eyeing up, make that decision. Does run two of the paths. You'd have to hope to draw into it there, but have to figure out which way you want to go. Instead, just going to be bringing the Eldegoss up forward and just take these prize cards in a different fashion. Another two. That's going to be the powerful energy then drawn there.
Yeah, and that means that we now do see all of the powerful energies, but not playing a powerful energy for the turn leaves Jon in a spot where he's not going to be able to get all four down unless he uses that Marnie once more. So going to be relying on that Lumineon finding that card, but certainly has the reach for it.
Yep. Now for Grant, still has the Duraludon VMAX. In the active, all powered up, but then what do you want to be doing at this point?
Yeah, this is slow. We see the Pokegear is going to try to help out, get something into the hand here. Thankfully, finds two different supporters here in the Marnie and the Course's Experiment. But do you focus on the disruption, or do you try to build your hand? I think messing with Jon's hand would be strong, as we've seen that did not help at all when the missed opportunity on the Marnie game 1 happened. And going to go for the Course's Experiment again, thinking that Jon just might have air.
Yeah, he didn't play down a path last time, didn't go for the powerful energies, maybe thinking, all right, he doesn't really have too much at this point, so this could be a safer play, make sure that I can get things going more so on my own end as opposed to just focusing on tripping Jon up, or maybe even Marnieing him into a better hand.
We've also seen Grant go for this play where you just remove the Archeops. It guarantees that finding 4 powerful energies is impossible now, and buys him a little time. But if the path comes down, the damage could start to build up.
Yeah, considering it shuts down that oh so great ability of Skyscraper. As soon as that path can be found, that's definitely a way that this Duraludon can start being dealt with the Archeops going down, Lumineon making its way into this active slot.
Jon actually drawing the third powerful, so even leaning harder towards getting the Marnie here, but not nearly as impactful now, knowing that the Archeops is knocked out.
Yeah, thin the deck out a little bit. Evolution Incense, grab that. I mean, it's done. Those birds aren't doing anything for you. But eyeing up with that Archeops. You have the 1, you still have some energy acceleration.
Looks like just gonna focus on getting some damage here. It feels okay because you can add some additional damage and maybe avoid a Hyper Potion messing up the math at some point. You just overcommit to this Lugia, but honestly, he's trying to set up for next turn. If he gets 1 powerful down here, then Archeops Marnie means that he can shuffle those powerfuls back in, search them out, play 1 more, and then he's going to have enough to where if he has that path, he can close the game out and take 1 huge knockout.
Yeah, with only having the 1 Archeops, you do have to be careful in just making sure you can get yourself set up. Since you are attaching significantly less energy, you got to think a little bit more in advance on where you want these to be going. Lumineon played down and searching out Professor's Research with that.
Yeah, if this gets played, that's a lot of powerful energies down, and maybe that leans closer to Jon going for a card like Aurora Energy and attacking into the Luminion, of course, or attacking with the Luminion. Of course, you'd need the path to the peak in that instance too. So we will see where this goes. He's gonna just go for it here.
Professor's research getting rid of a lot, but valuing just being able to see a couple of more cards. What do you try and maybe get that peak, try and see what can be grabbed, but I don't think you managed to get it.
The prize map is there for Grant. He's gonna have a knockout on the Luminion. I don't see the path, so.
Nope, both still in deck.
Just tried to thin out there, using the Primal Turbo, attaching, just drew as many cards as possible, but drew into 4 Pokemon and a couple supporters.
2 paths. There's not enough quite in this moment. Such a tricky situation. You want to be able to attack into this, especially now. Powerful energies are gone. You're not going to be able to get that one-hit KO.
Yeah, this does not line up well. Jon understands the situation too. Kind of just shakes his head. He's going to go ahead and do a boss count here. See if there's any danger of gusting up one of these Pokemon like the Luminion. Just going to leave the high hit points of the Lugia in the active spot now. This does help here with the prize exchange. If Grant doesn't take a prize card this turn, then of course we're going to be sticking around for 2 additional turns now. And even though this is the most valuable Pokemon Jon has, he really just needs to cash in on the damage from the Lugia one time and then try to clean up with the Archeops or the Luminion.
As long as the path can be found in the first place to be able to be dealing that damage. The missing piece of the puzzle found so early in game 1, but just cannot seem to draw into it this time around.
It looks like, yeah, we're going to see that Colress's experiment. Grant just going to try to get closer to finding a way to close out this game. Maybe a counter stadium if the path is found would be a nice card to add into the hand here.
Does have a training court as well as 2 crystal caves, and having an answer to the path once it comes down could definitely be nice energy. Duraludon thrown into the lost zone. Just looking through. You want to make sure when things are this close, you can get things set up, but it's just going to be ending with hitting into this Lugia.
Pulverization not going to be a knockout there, but of course, nice to go ahead and get the damage down. You can clean up that Lugia on the following turn, and it really does just come down to Jon having that path to the peak. He needs to find that here, deal as much damage as possible. You didn't see an additional energy down from your opponent, so maybe the Hyper Potion plays aren't going to be an issue, and there is the path.
It only took way too many professors' research getting there, but finally, path to the peak coming down, being able to shut down the skyscraper ability and actually be able to attack into it.
Wow, looking through the rest of the deck, it's just a ball search, a choice belt, an energy, and one more path. It's got 8 cards in there, and it's going to be a narrow road here. We see the professor's research in hand too, so if he does use that, he decks out next turn.
So hopefully the path sticks and is able to just make things happen that way, or you just draw into it, able to close things out. Gotta be so careful when you're on such a low deck at this point. Voice belt attached onto the Archeops, onto the bench. Now we have the eye up. The Tempest dive, being able to actually go for the damage.
Yeah, this is gonna deal 270, and that is a nice chunk of change. Play into the Hyper Potion potential, and maybe it makes it a little more difficult for the Archeops to clean up, and that slows down Jon's plan.
One of the Hyper Potions was discarded, but drawing into the other one off of the Colress's experiment for potion. Definitely take a nice amount of these damage counters off.
Does he have the energy? He has the training court. That's so big here. It's going to counter the path to the peak, and all he needs to have is 1 basic energy in the discard pile. Of course, can just throw those in with the Hyper Potion and bring one of those medals right back. And this Duraludon has new life, 180 hit points remaining. And Jon says, yeah, I can't do that. Let's go to game 3.
Yeah, I needed as many damage counters on that Duraludon as possible. And with just so little left, I mean, you're stadium was bumped. You're not hitting for anything, just not able to.
And that is a Regigigas start once more. But this is not the best prize cards for Grant. You see the 1-1 of the Arceus, and it is just a 2 Arceus VStar. So maybe finding that 1 VStar at the right time could be an issue. But here's the bad news. Jon's going to have to make do with this Pokemon in the active once more. And we know it is very difficult to move this Pokemon for treat cost.
Yeah, it's stuck there. That Regigigas is as good as gone as long as there is a response over on Grant's end. To start things off, Evolution Incense. Go look what else that you have. Check on those powerful energies. See how your prize cards are, but at least having access to them this game will be nice.
The rest of the hand is so strong. There's double Evolution Incense, a way to throw away the Archeops, a capture energy along with a quick ball, but why? Why are you here, Regigigas?
Yeah, that's just not a good time, especially when you run so many Pokemon. The odds of just being able to consistently start this Regigigas is just so unfortunate. At least having the good rest of the hand is going to be nice. Can quick ball away that Archeops, throw a Lugia onto the bench, and you know, there's still the answers, there's still the outs. I mean, that could have been a completely different game in Game 2 if Jon had just found the pass earlier, even with losing the Regigigas so early.
Well, I'm interested to see if even there's a debate for Jon to throw down the twin energy and just think of, maybe I'll just retreat this thing. Capture energy is so strong as it gets you some additional Pokemon, but maybe if you can preserve this Pokemon, you could save it for a better time.
If by any way or means.
I love it.
And there it is. Twin
Yep.
energy and pass it on over to Grant. I mean, you run a lot of energies, so that's definitely a nice choice. Duraludon over on Grant's end as well, that double turbo energy going onto the Arceus V for that Trinity charge. Just get energies loaded up on his side of the board.
Yep, not much going on and not much needs to happen here. You have the double turbo, you have that Duraludon V ready to go. And as long as the hand still has a little more to give, hopefully Grant will be able to give the full setup here.
Yeah, and being able to just find that double turbo on that first turn with that Arceus V to get the energies is so nice, because Duraludon can be a little bit of a slow and awkward deck at times, so that's definitely just an ideal position to be in, as long as the rest of the hand works out.
Well, with a little over 9 minutes remaining, both players with a lot going on here, as we could certainly see both players set up and see some fireworks, but the Regigigas is certainly making this a little more awkward for Jon here. If he does find a way to accelerate some energies, if he does get the Lugia V-Star, Summoning Star, and get the Archeops going, that would be a fantastic second turn here. But even just finding one of the 2 double turbos and retreating this Regigigas would have to feel like a win here.
Well, he's going to find the Evolution Incense to go ahead and grab another one of those Archeops. And be able, as long as you have a way to throw it into the discard pile, that's also important. We've gotten to see just how weird it can get with not having both of those birds out, and where the energy gets a little difficult to work with. So as soon as you can find that and get rid of it, Professor of Research in hand, we'll be able to pitch the entire hand, birds and all, have a chance to go looking for this Lugia V-Star.
Yep, that would be ideal. We do see the Ultra Ball. We see double turbo as well. So there's a way for this Lugia V-Star to even attack this turn, and I don't think it gets much better than that.
Ultra Ball in hand can go ahead and search that out, getting rid of the Pumpkaboo and the Manaphy as the Lugia V-Star makes the appearance out onto the field.
I think Jon is counting his lucky stars here. So I can't believe I'm actually going to do this. I've got the full Summoning Star here, both Archeops, a way to move the Regigigas. I'm knocking out my opponent's Arceus V before they could even evolve, and I protected Gigas.
Honestly, so ideal considering that you had the bad luck in just starting that Regigigas the first time around, and with the only one Arceus V on Grant's end, once it's down, I mean, you're not going to have access to the next time because you won't have anything to evolve.
Right, now we're going to see what Jon's feeling here. We're in the closing minutes here of game number 3, and that could certainly lead to a very aggressive amount of energies. These powerfuls going to be used and have the protection of the V-Guard as well. And as even though the Lugia it doesn't need to deal that much damage to knock out the Arceus, he's already thinking about next turn maybe having an answer to a Duraludon VMAX.
Make sure that once the energies are there, you're good to go, considering there didn't necessarily be that answer. This Lugia pretty bulky in itself, so energies should stick on, and having all 4 powerful at disposal is so nice.
Yeah, and the debate is always going to be if you're going to go for more than 2, and he is going to go ahead and do that, just be able to search out the one last powerful if he needs to. But this does mean that if Regigigas were to go for a knockout, it needs that belt.
Being able to get all those energies on board, the chance to take out this Arceus. Just over 6 minutes left. Definitely so possible that double turbo attached. The Regigigas going to be safer now on the bench. Did not think that one was going to be possible, as Lugia VStar now go for the Tempest dive and take out this Arceus V.
Yep, I think the sun is coming out. The dark cloud is going away as 2 prize cards into the hand for Jon Eng with a near flawless setup here. Lugia VStar threatening this Duraludon V, and Grant needs to find answers quick.
Yeah, being able to get involved and hope that there's no path over on the other end, get something down. The energies are there. Quick Ball, not Quick Ball, Evolution Incense in hand. There was an Ultra Ball there as well. So we'll be able to search out that VMAX.
Yeah, and although the Starbirth isn't going to be available, a Pokemon was knocked out, and I believe a Raihan is in the hand too. It's just now you need to make sure to use this Ultra Ball to go find one final Pokemon to commit these energies and additional resources to.
Yep, Raihan's actually strong card in this list. The Ultra Ball there. Gonna go find another Duraludon V, put that onto the bench just in time for that Raihan to make an appearance and grab a Mental Energy out of the discard, put it on, and go for that Starbirth Light. Just grab a card here.
And this could just be a Raihan chain at this point. You go for the second one, and then you have an opportunity to... Oh, it's actually just one Raihan. One. This is really bad then. If the Duraludon VMAX is knocked out this turn, there are no ways to get enough energies onto this Pokemon, a future Duraludon VMAX, to start attacking again. So desperately needs to survive this turn. Cannot see Path to the Peak.
It is over on Jon's end to see if there is that peak, is access to it in hand. Eyeing up both ways to be going through this hand and potentially be able to go through the deck a little bit.
Yeah, Jon has a big decision to make here. He can either target down the Duraludon V, take the prize cards, and rely on the Regigigas to close things out here, or he can go all in, search for the Professor's research, and try to get that last powerful energy, the belt, and the path to close out on this huge Duraludon VMAX and all but seal the game here.
Started off with Primal Turbo. Also great just to be eyeing up what is in your deck and try and figure out the odds of what will be the most ideal path to close things out at this point. With 4 minutes left, you want to make sure that each turn is going to be the most impactful it can.
And we've seen so many energies committed just to get to this spot, but maybe a Pokemon like the Amazing Rare Evital could be used. There is no Parasol, but that is a lot of commitment. So yeah, I do like seeing a little bit of a hedge here. Get the energies onto the Gigas in case your opponent does something peculiar, and it's also a way to thin down a little bit.
Quick Ball away. The Marnie, the chance, the Yveltal we put onto the bench can be threatening in for next turn. Maybe a little bit of sign of what's to come, that it could be the approach of already down that Duraludon V on bench for this turn.
This is such a tough spot. It looks like about 20, 25 cards. Probably more on the 25 side here. So finding the path a little bit unlikely. So could see some additional energies pulled from Primal Turbo. But I think I might just boss the Duraludon and play safer. I don't trust myself here. Jon's thinking go for it.
Just the 2-0 path, it's definitely a scary approach. If it pays off, though, that's game, because that Duraludon V on bench with only the one Raihan won't be able to get the energies that's necessary. So it could be a big risk, big reward type of play at this moment. Nope, instead it will be the boss's order. The energy, powerful, last one onto the Lugia, but is just going to do the safer thing with taking out that Duraludon V.
Okay, I like this, yeah. didn't really even need the powerful, but if a different Pokemon is targeted this turn, then he will have the opportunity to just use the belt. That's not going to happen. Marnie's going to come down here, so Lugia will certainly be knocked out. And wow, look at that, immediately finding path to the peak.
Drawing that off of the Marnie definitely feels nice. Grant has to be looking through and figuring out this best approach because there is a lot of pressure on Jon's side if you're unable to quite find an answer and slow Jon down. And unfortunately, with the path in hand, Yveltal on the board, the Regigigas on board, there's just a little too much.
Yeah, Grant needs the path to not show up for at least one turn, preferably for 2 now, and we do see the Eldegoss being grabbed here. Will not be benched because it's a relatively easy knockout, and we'll hold on to that to maybe go and find the Serenas or the bosses to close out. But Jon is going to go to see if he has enough energies to close out here. The big Parasol was not found, and there are plenty of colored energies here. Yveltal is going to take a huge knockout with the Amazing Destruction. There's the handshake, just as awkward as Duraludon, and we're going to see Jon Eng in the top 4.
Amazing
Top 8.
Destruction for the win. Lugia.